Thank you all so much for being here for this episode of Black, Queer, and Unapologetic. This is the 10th episode of Black, Queer, and Unapologetic in the series. And this is the last episode of BQ and You before our 100 episode mark. So thank you all so much for being here.
Nice. Thanks for having me.
Thanks. Yeah.
Absolutely. We are coming from all over the country. And that's one of the main reasons why I chose you guys. Other than, all of us, I believe, have very unique viewpoints as far as what's going on in the world right now. I also wanted it to be something where all of us weren't living in the same city for the exact same experiences. You feel me?
Yeah.
So with this, there's a possibility that even though our ways of thinking may be similar, our experiences and what's taking place are different according to where we live. So I wanted to start off with our first question, dealing with, of course, the Healing Space is a mental health podcast. So I wanted to start off with a mental health question. So I'll go around to each of you just asking particularly how you feel about this. And then, we can kind of go around if you all want to interact with each other and things of that nature. We can do that too. So have you taken, nope, gonna cut that out. Gonna remove that. How have you taken care of your mental health during the pandemic? Marc, we'll start with you first.
It's been tough.
Mm-hmm.
It's been mad tough. Work for me hasn't really stopped.
Yeah.
And nothing's really changed. But like for y'all who don't know, my self-care is like running, working out, and stuff like that. But I haven't really been able to do so.
Yeah.
So I had to find new ways to take care of myself, and that's been a journey and a struggle. But it's going better. But it's been tough. It's been an up and down road.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Have you not been able to do it because you're like, you don't necessarily, if you feel like if you go running outside, you may be too close to others, or is it because of your work, you don't really have the time? Like,
so like the gyms that I can go to, like I haven't felt comfortable going, but also I haven't ran since the whole Ahmaud Arbery thing. And
that's real.
Yeah, with me being in Kentucky, it's a different world.
Yeah.
So that's that. So I've been trying to use my like apartment space, but it's very limited in space. So it's just been tough. So it forced me to find other ways to take care of myself, like journaling and music and stuff like that. But still, like exercise is like my stress reliever.
Yeah.
So I had to figure out how to do that in the space in the area that I can.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's been tough.
I think that's happened with a lot of us too. For those of us who, we do focus on our fitness, either a little bit or a lot, figuring out different ways to be able to focus on it, because it's not the same way that it used to be. It doesn't look the same, and it may be a while before it goes back to looking that way.
Oh, yeah.
So I definitely can understand that. So, so what ways, if you can tell the Misfit universe who's listening right now, are there any particular ways that you've gone about changing that for yourself?
You talking about the things I actually do for self-care?
Yeah.
I've been like journaling a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
Audible has become like my best friend.
Mm-hmm.
I've like heard some books that I haven't heard in a long time. I've been listening to a lot of Elin Harris, and that spoke to my heart so much. So just listening to stuff like that, and I do these things called personal dance parties in my apartment.
Nice.
So like I'll leave like my computer in my office, and I'll go in the house and like turn on my Bluetooth speaker, and I'll like turn the volume all the way up and just go to work. And like next thing you know, I'm sweating and I'm good.
Oh, dance your cares away? Yes.
You got to.
Chavez, what about you?
To make sure that, what was can you repeat the question again?
Yeah. How have you taken care of your mental health during the pandemic?
Okay, yeah. So to take care of my mental health during this pandemic, which I must admit that I'm a home person.
Yeah.
So the actual quarantine didn't bother me as much.
Same.
But yeah, it didn't bother me as much. Except for I will say, like, when my birthday came around, I really felt it.
Yeah.
Because I normally go on vacation on my birthday. So I really felt it then. But I will say that the racial discrimination, I don't know. I just feel like that has affected me more than anything that's going on in the world. But what I do is I have to sometimes take a mental break from social media for a few days to to make sure that I can just decompress and just, not saying that I'm avoiding what's going on in the world, but sometimes you just need that break. Because just constantly seeing the same thing over and over, it can, I don't know, it can be frustrating, overwhelming. Yeah, so I just sometimes had to break away from social media for a few days, and then I'll come back and I feel fine.
Yeah.
And another thing that I feel is helpful, I had to piggyback on what Marc said with the journaling. Like, the journaling has really helped me. I use an app called I think it's pronounced Reflectly. I'm not sure if you guys ever heard of it before, but it's very interactive. I really enjoy that app. But that has helped me with my mental, as well as having open discussions with, like, my friends and my family about everything that's going on. I find that to be helpful as well.
Nice. Okay. So to what you were saying as far as what's going on with a lot of the racial issues happening in our country, when you said that it's been kind of, hitting you more than anything else, has it been hitting you harder because of the pandemic, kind of because we have to sit still and witness it? Or is it just overall? It's not really because
I feel like that is overall, and it just seems like it's been a constant thing.
Yeah.
Since we've been in this pandemic. I mean, I know that we've been going through it forever.
Yeah.
But it just seems very just prevalent more today than I've ever seen in my 33 years.
Yeah. Thank you for that. And what about you, Thomas?
So obviously fitness is big for me. So losing the gym was extremely tough. The first 2 weeks of quarantine were like, what am I going to do?
Right.
It was like, literally, I've had crutches in the past of where you try to deal with things, your feelings, your emotions. And, for most people who've been overweight, they go directly to food. So I knew that's not an avenue, or drinking or alcohol. I knew that wasn't an avenue that I wanted to go down. So for me, it really was finding another way to work out. Being inventive with it. Possibly I wasn't breaking into my complex gym. The key still worked and it was open. They didn't change the code.
Wow.
So going in, but what was nice about it is it forced me to then wake up 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning so I can get in before anyone in the office got in.
Yeah.
And I work out in. So now I'm back on that routine. Now, luckily, we've been open for about a month now. The gyms have been open. I gave them about a week, and then I went back in. Wearing a mask is not fun to do when you're working out, but it's what's necessary to keep everyone healthy and everyone safe. The gym for me is the biggest thing for my mental health. That's me specifically. I learned a long time ago that also being able to sit in your feelings and your thoughts, whatever you're feeling, whether they be good or bad, is going to help. And then somewhat expressing them, whether it be to my partner or to my friends, texting Chavez, or just checking in on each other. We get into this kind of misconception that someone always has to be checking in on you, which is not the case. But that random one every week or every 2 weeks is the thing. That's all I need. Like, oh, hey, how are you doing? I'm good. Okay, cool. And then you're back to, I hate to use the word normal, because for me, I don't think there will ever be a normal again, which is good. But just those constant reminders, and like I said, fitness for me is you know, walking to the park, finding a new park to walk to, and doing what I need to do to work out. Because if I didn't work out, then I would go crazy. But I'm gonna find something to do to tell myself that I'm working out.
What I think is so cool is that as I listened to all three of you, each of you had one or two specific things that I'm doing in my life as well. So that was really cool. Like as Thomas was talking, I'm like, wow, it's really all three of them. Like all three of you have some part of the way you're operating in the pandemic that I do too. For me, the newest thing that I'm doing for my mental health is that yesterday I started therapy again. And I'm 40 now, and I haven't had a therapist since I was 23. And so I was thinking about it because my 9 to 5, I'm an essential worker as well. And I work for a nonprofit where we're working with homeless youth, a lot of them queer and trans, and it's all around mental health. So I'm like, I'm surrounded by this all day. All of the kids on my caseload all battled different mental health issues. So it begins to take a toll on you, you know? So for a while now, I've been there for over 2 years. And for a while, I've been going on and on about how I need to go to a therapist. Because, you know, those of us working in mental health, we need therapists too.
Yes.
And I held off for a really long time until it got to a point last week where I was legit beginning to, I mean, it started at the end of last year. The end of last year, and I talked about it on the podcast before, I started breaking out into stress hives, which I didn't even know were a thing. I'd never heard of them before. And so I ended up having to do research because I'm like, what the hell is happening to my torso? So, you know, it's like I'm doing research and find out what they were, find out the reason why it ended up happening to me, you know, an issue that I had with one of my kids where I had to call Child Protective Services on her because of things she was doing to her child. Didn't want to do it, stressed me out, you know, and all this stuff. So it got to a point where I'm just like, okay, you keep doing this and you're thinking that all you have to do is meditate it away. All you have to do is go and help people. And that's how it worked in the past. In the past, me getting my healing was just being there for others, and that would make me feel better. For whatever reason, the minute I hit 40, all of those old rules changed. Everything changed. My anxiety looks different now, you know. Before with me, it was like, okay, you know, I get anxious about stuff, but we'll be all good. Now my anxiety makes it so I can't even walk into certain rooms anymore. I was on a Zoom call with Yoga Alliance, and I couldn't even stay on it. There were people from all over the world, and it made me feel really uncomfortable, awkward. I can't do it, and I had to sign off, you know? So I'm like, this wasn't me before 40. Like, what's happening? And I was like, I really do need to seek a therapist. So thankfully, one of the therapists on my campus put me down with this website that I was able to go to. Found a therapist, and she and I started yesterday, and she's amazing. Just one session, and already I'm like, this is gonna work. And thank you, Chavez. She asked me, she said, so have you had a therapist before? I said at 23, but please don't ask me anything about him because all I remember is that he was Indian. She was like, I guess that would stand out. I was like, he did make an impact on me, you know?
Right.
Like I stopped therapy with him because he made no impact whatsoever. And that's when I realized this time around that you need to find a therapist that speaks to exactly what it is that you need. At that age, I was just like, I'm supposed to go and sit on the couch with somebody and that'll be enough, you know? So I went in there with him, and he was one of those therapists. I'm not sure if any of you have had a therapist before, but he was one of those therapists that you talk the whole time, and he eventually wants to lead you to what your issue is, which is what, as a life coach, I was taught. As a life coach, I was taught, Marc says to me, you know, I'm dealing with anxiety. My response is, so you're dealing with anxiety. That's what I was taught, you know? Right. I don't need that kind of therapist. And she's not. She's one of those ones that talks to me the way you guys would, you know? Right. And through our conversation, I have my aha moments. And I'm like, okay, so that's going to work. So I would have to say that out of all of the different practices, you know, things that have changed with me, working out in the house, doing yoga in the house and things of that nature, my therapist is probably the most important piece. Mind you, I'm like only 24 hours into her, but I would definitely say that
it only takes one session to make a difference, honestly.
Yeah. And it did. And I don't know, like it's a Black woman. And I chose a Black woman. You know, the website that I went to lets you get real detailed. So I wanted a Black woman. I wanted it to be somebody who is then an ally and accomplice of the Black, queer, and trans community. They let you get like down to religion and everything. So she came into it already understanding me, and I needed that. I needed to feel seen for exactly who I am. I didn't need those awkward conversations of being like, well, this is me, and it's phenomenal. So yeah, that's big.
I think the biggest thing too that Vez had said is the social media, stepping away, especially when dealing with your mental health, because obviously we're all Black here. All of what we're seeing right now is very triggering.
Yeah.
I know you had posted something earlier today, and it's very true for me too. The Elijah McCain story.
Yeah.
I have to fast and scroll past it.
Yeah.
I can't, because and like you said, you felt connection to it. I felt a connection to it because I used to teach students like him.
Yes.
And it's like, it's very triggering to the brain to say, that could have been one of my students. That could have been me. That could have been someone else. So definitely being able to put down the phone, close the computer. You know, I found joy again in washing dishes and cooking dinner and cleaning around the house, because I didn't want to be sitting down, because if I was sitting down, then more than likely I was going to be on my phone.
Yeah.
Right.
What happened with Elijah, and I know I can't stay on it long because whoo boy. But yeah, all of them, you know, like Thomas, you said you saw my story. Like I put in my story, like all of the deaths have impacted me.
Yeah.
But it's something about the fact that, when he was talking to them and he was saying to them, you know, I'm just an introvert, like all of these things. The way he's speaking to you, and yet you still did what you did to him. You know good and well. That's what's really getting to me, you know? And I could see me as him in a heartbeat. And I'm saying, you know, because I've run over my mind over and over again, what would I say in a situation like that? And he said some things that I would say, and I'm like, and it still didn't matter. So that's what angers me, is because it's like you say to yourself, well, I'll do these things if the situation ever arises. Oh shit, even that's not going to matter, you know? And that is what really got at me. But also something you said earlier when I was saying that I could take something from all three of you, you were talking about sitting with yourself. And I think that's very important, because it's something that a lot of us are afraid of. Yes. And when I do a lot of my life coach sessions, it's something I challenge my clients to do, because we fear actually digging deep.
Yes.
But I'm so glad that you said that, Thomas, because it's so necessary. And I feel like this pandemic was a blessing in that sense.
Yes.
For some.
Yeah.
Like some people still don't want to know who they are.
Absolutely.
Some people cannot sit with themselves.
There's that, but then there's also people who don't understand. It took me 34 years. I just turned 36. So it took me 33 years, and Chavez, you can speak to this. Raybon, you too, about who I was even just 4 or 5 years ago as a person to where I am now. To be able to actually even do that. I projected so much of what was going on inside me to other people.
Yeah.
That it was so, when we use the word, and again, another word I don't like to use, but when we use the word toxic, when in actuality, we are the person that is the problem.
Speak.
And we just can't come to terms with that. So every single time it's someone else's fault. It's someone else's fault. It's okay. But then when you step back, sit in everything that you have done and everything that you're going through, and you say, oh shit, this was me. I shouldn't have let this go on for so long. I should have contributed to this. I should have just walked away. So once you, and I get it, you know, so you just can't come to terms with it unless you want to. But then some people don't even know how to get there.
Speak.
Because again, we're all conditioned in one way to do something, whether from birth, whether from our parents, or from the relationships that we have around us, or from our friends. We don't understand our friends, the people we touch, the people that we come in contact with every single day contribute to everything that goes into us. So at the end of the day, what we are putting out is exactly what we've taken in.
Yeah.
So we have to definitely be able to just sit and focus on us. That's why I say focus. We'll get back to that. But but we have to focus on ourselves. We really do. And that's not being selfish. It's not being individualistic. It's for the betterment of the people around us that we're able to complete ourselves before we can help anyone else out.
I like that you said that, because I named 2020. So I name every year, for those of you who don't know. I name every year. I started that in like 2010. And I named 2020 the year of healthy selfishness. And I was like, there is a such thing as healthy selfishness. And I feel like you just spoke to that, you know. It's like I'm not seeking to take anything away from anyone else. I'm not seeking to harm anyone else, but I want to make sure that I'm showing up for me. And for me, I know as a healer, as someone who is out here doing the work towards others, I know that I was put on this earth to be a servant to humanity. I know that about me. So that means that I have to go above and beyond to make sure that I'm showing up for me. And I like that you said that, because everyone's journey is different. All four of us, our journeys are different. Some of us will get to certain places before others. Others, you know, will be behind. And one of the things that I had to learn, and there are certain people in my life that all of y'all know that I had to learn, they don't mean me any harm in some of the things that they've done to me. Mm-hmm. And I can't expect that, especially because of my age, you know? So it's like, it has less to do with the number and more to do with the experiences. I've experienced certain things that have gotten me to a certain point in time. But because of the trauma that I've gone through, certain people will or won't do things, and I'll assume that it's an attack on me. It's not an attack on them, on me. It's just where they are in their journey.
Right.
And we have to show, as a lot of people have been using the word grace lately, we have to show them grace. And we have to, if we care and truly love these people, right, we have to be able to do two things. We have to be able to give them space to grow. How and ever, we have to also be able to know when to step away. Yep. And that's very important too, because we all exist in chapters. And while we are giving somebody the space to be able to grow, we have to also be able to say, okay, that's long enough. I am now beginning to damage myself. So I'm gonna have to, you know, out right now. And who's to say in the future we may not have another chapter, you know?
You're right.
You quiet over there, Mark? You have anything to put in?
Listen, everything y'all saying is just like, it's just hitting.
Listen, Thomas almost made me stand up.
I almost knocked over this whole computer because I have been super thankful about this quarantine time, because it was one of these times that it was a blessing in disguise. It forced me and so many of my friends to sit down and sit in our thoughts. And when before this we were constantly going to work or worrying about family, worrying about so many other things, this stopped everything. And to sit and really stew in those thoughts, and some thoughts you haven't had for 10, 15, 20 years, and you have to face, you know, those things that you were thinking and those situations again after 10, 15, 20 years, it's scary.
Yeah.
You know, it is so scary. So to sit in those thoughts, it's crazy. So it forced me to handle things and to deal with things that I haven't handled, but it's forcing friends to do the same, and they can't do it. Mm-hmm. You know, or they're not at their step in their journey to do so.
Right.
You know, and that's okay. You know, I was just talking with one of my really good friends I met at a conference a couple years back, and we were talking on Friday, and, you know, we're just catching up, and he was like, well, what you been up to? And I was like, you know, just working on myself. And he asked, what have you been working on? And I was like, well, and I like broke it down, and I was like, I had to realize during this time that, you know, the good guy Marc wasn't so good.
Wow.
You know, and the nice guy wasn't always nice, you know, because a lot of things that I was projecting onto other people, it wasn't them doing things, it was me.
Yeah.
You know, so it was a very real conversation. It's been a very real period. But, you know, as I talked to another one of my colleagues, she just can't sit with herself. Mm-hmm. And she has a lot of things that she's fighting. And it's hard to constantly reaffirm her and just like, okay, your time will come. Yeah. And today is just not that time. It's okay.
Yeah.
You know, so, you know, Thomas, when you said that before, it like, I put like a mental note, and I was like, I have to come back to that. But then I forgot. And then, you know, Raybon came.
Well, it's funny you say that, because what we're seeing right now, especially with these cases start to surge, whether they are or not. People can believe in conspiracies, but now you're starting to see the people who feed off that energy from others. And I get it.
Mm-hmm.
I am a people person to the core. I love being around people. I love all that energy. But at the same time, you can see that, oh, I need to take a picture of this. I need this for Instagram. I need this for Facebook. Look, I'm out and about, because they can't just sit with themselves.
Mm-hmm.
If that were the case, we'd see a lot more selfies of people sitting on their couch.
Yeah.
But we don't want to do that, because that's not what fits our narrative of who we are. Mm-hmm. I get it, because a lot of people used to tell me that all the time. I lost a whole bunch of weight and I look different. People are like, wow, you're a different person. I'm like, I'm really not.
Mm-hmm.
I am the same person I am on the inside, but now I've kind of been able to get rid of all these other layers where you just saw this before. You saw the happy-go-lucky guy. I was right there with you, Marc. I was the happy, fun, the drunk guy, who was always having a good time, but never really got down to the nitty-gritty of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so shed the weight, really understand what was going on in my brain, and now they're like, man, this guy's he can be a jerk a little bit. No, I'm just truthful.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is the things that I had to deal with myself in order to truly understand myself.
Mm-hmm.
So I get it. So.
Oh, child. Yes. Y'all are speaking. So as far as the changes, we've all experienced changes. What do you believe has been the most impactful change that you felt during this pandemic? We'll go with Chavez first.
Okay. For me, the most impactful change is definitely how all of the countries are uniting together for Black Lives Matter. I've never seen anything like that happen before. So it just makes me feel that I don't know how far it's going to take. Well, how long it's going to take to get to where we want to be, but it's definitely a change coming.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can't think of anything else, right? but I think that's the most impactful so far.
Okay, and you, Thomas?
I'm going to go back before the pandemic. I had a big change or a big shift in my life. And then I decided to move. So one of my biggest things was refinding my faith.
Yeah.
And understanding that my path was already created. I just had to go down it. Instead of trying to create all these little avenues of, oh, I can get here through this. No, just he's leading you. So go down this path.
Yeah.
And like I said, me and my partner have talked plenty of times, and one of the biggest things we said is that 2020 not being this perfect vision, but actually being a year of revelations. And whether they be people, things, events, really showing themselves for what they really are. And that's what you see. So I moved here. I was in the best shape of my life. I was really lean. I was down to like 225. I got a job. I started eating everything in sight. Now I'm living in Vegas. I'm like, oh yeah, let's party, let's do it. And it reversed everything I had done for a whole 6 months in rather like 2 months. So I really had to step back and reevaluate everything because I kind of just said, screw it to everything that I had worked so hard for, to then be like, oh, just blow it all on this. So I had to really go back and almost retrain my brain to say, wait a second, this is not what you want to do. This is not where you want to be. So it was really, the pandemic gave me a perfect time to hone in on my diet, to get the brand really going, to get the show going, and to really, like Marc said, sit down, work on myself again, because I think we get this idea that once we reach a goal or the success point where we think is success, we stop. And we're done. And we're like, okay, yeah, all right. And then it hits you in the face again, and you're like, oh shit, no, I got to keep working. Yeah. So
resort back to your old ways.
Yeah. So it just kind of reasserted the fact to me, like, no. this journey is not goal to goal. This journey is going to be lifelong till the day I die.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to follow the path, however long it takes me, because tomorrow could be it, or 40 years down the road could be it. But if I don't wake up every day with intention, then I'm not going to go anywhere.
There we go.
So one of the biggest things, and the last thing I'll say is I found an old picture of amidst when I was back in Baltimore of me losing weight.
Mm-hmm.
And for me now, it's weird because I'm like, wow, you were really big. And then here's another picture. I was like, you're still big. But for me, it was progression. And what I in turn said to myself is you have to be able to turn that progression into a passion.
Yeah.
Because when that happens is when your drive starts to kick in.
Yeah.
We can all strive for perfection, but we might not ever get there.
Mm-hmm.
But that's okay. Because as long as you're still going and that still drives you, then shit, nothing's going to stop you.
It's absolutely about the journey.
Yeah. Focus
on the journey. Yeah. And what about you, Marc?
Oh, shoot. Ray, I'm gonna give you a little pat on the back. So every time I've kind of taken something from you. So every time that you come out with your, you name the years.
Yeah.
So I've been kind of like snatching that from you, but I never put it out there. It's been more of like a personal thing,
Yeah.
So I turned 30 in 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Jeez.
I'm
yeah, Thomas.
Oh.
Yes. I turned 30 in 2 weeks. So like before, at the end of last year, I was in Houston with some really, really great people. And I was trying to think of a name for this year. And I was like, what's it going to be? So like, I got on your page, Raybon, and I like started scrolling, and I was like, I need some like insight. I need some inspiration. So this year was my year of the Phoenix,
Yes.
Because I feel like 30 is monumental. And me, coming from Cleveland, there's a lot of people I grew up with that aren't here anymore.
Yeah.
So for me to make it to 30 and, be doing some really good things, I feel like in my eyes, I was like, this is going to be something great,
Mm-hmm.
And then, COVID's bald-headed ass hit. And I was just like, all this change that I'm trying to do and all this challenging I'm trying to do to myself, how am I going to do it with everything closed down?
Absolutely.
And, with everything at a standstill. So that was a big impact just because, like, I had to figure out new ways how to really accomplish those goals and really reevaluate and figure out those goals for me. So it's been a lot of challenging myself.
Yeah.
And not just challenging the positive aspects, but challenging the negative aspects too. A lot of mental work, a lot of emotional work, a lot of open and honest conversations, which I'm pretty sure all y'all know are not always fun.
Mm-hmm.
And that's with, old significant others, that's with family, that's with therapists, it's been a whole mess. But that's really been an impact. And then just seeing this, everything going on with the Black Lives Matter movement and the visuals of seeing these, people of color being killed on social media, it forced me to really push myself outside the box and challenge myself and be like, okay, I have a voice, I have breath. How am I going to go out here and really fight for these people?
Yeah.
Because we talk about Elijah, that could have been my little brother.
Mm-hmm.
We talk about Breonna, that could have been my sister or my aunt. We talk about George Floyd, that could have been my dad. We talk about Ahmaud Arbery, that could have been me.
Yeah.
So how am I going to use this year of me growing out of the ashes and redeveloping who I am and soaring among the clouds? How can I use that aspect to really push me to fight for these people who aren't here anymore? Right. So that's been a huge aspect for me, a huge impact in this year. And I plan on carrying that momentum, into these 30.
Come on, Year of the Phoenix. I love it. I think that may have been like, I don't know if I turned 38, 37. I had the Phoenix at some point. I don't remember what year it was.
I know.
You're silly. So, okay, I'm going to take this question and then, so I'll be the last one to answer this question and then I'll be the first one to go into the next one. So the biggest impact for me would probably be the work that I'm doing with the nonprofit that I work for. It's everything that's happening shows up so different when you're an essential worker, you know? Because people are like, how much has your life changed? I'm like, I'm sure not as much as yours. Like, my life has stayed very much the same. I guess the biggest changes would be, you know, like I work from home on certain days now. That's new, you know, and I don't look forward to if that ever changes. I'm like, if we can, when we come out of this, can I continue to work from home?
Right.
And then
that's the same question I asked my manager.
Listen, it's real.
I'm like, can this be forever?
Forever. Listen.
I have no reason to come back into no office.
Listen. And I think a lot of people are realizing that now, Chavez. A lot of companies are realizing that. Like, oh, you can actually do this from home. Yes, we can.
Right.
Yes, we can. But for me, and this is what we've attempted to explain to, you know, our president, vice president, all of them. It's like, for our mental health, as life coaches and therapists, we don't need to be there 5 days a week. That takes a toll on us, you know, especially because as a nonprofit, we have money that we have to be able to, you know, bring in to stay open. So a lot of that comes from our billing for our clients. So we need to be able to bill for our clients as well as see our clients. And that's not always an easy thing to do when you're there 5 days a week. So being able to work from home, we have an opportunity to work on our notes and still interact with them on our time. Where if we're there on campus, they can come knocking on our office door at any time, you know? So that has been a big impact in a positive way, is that I get to kind of step back. But also for me, especially for you guys who know about storytellers, we always would do, you know, pay it forward. And so what we've been doing right now with my organization is that 2 times a week, we go out into the community and we take food to families in need. And so that's twice a week we do that. And we've been doing that for 3 months now. And that has made a huge impact on me in my life because it reminds me of what I did up in Baltimore. And I love doing that. I love giving back. My coworkers are like, okay, we done. We tired of getting in cars and driving all over Georgia. They're like, we good. I'm like, can I please keep doing this? Like, it's the best feeling. It's the best feeling, especially to see those looks in families who right now, for whatever reason, they may not have jobs. They can't get out. You know, we don't know where we're going to get our next meal from. And especially for like families. So for it's like, you know, mothers and fathers who are going through that, to be able to have people who care enough to be able to help them out. And for them to not feel like they, you know, they're like, we don't need it. We don't want our kids seeing us getting, you know, and they're like, by all means, please, we really appreciate it. It's an awesome feeling. So then to transition from that into something that Chavez has mentioned more than once. I know, Marc, that you've talked about. I believe you may have mentioned it as well, Thomas. But as far as Black Lives Matter, my next question for you guys, and I'll go first, is how have you been doing your part as far as Black Lives Matter, Black trans lives matter, all Black lives matter? You know, what is it that you've been doing for your part? And the reason why I say, what have you been doing? And I talk about this on my other podcast, Keep Firing, which I actually posted. I think I posted this clip earlier today, which is, I believe that we all play different parts. And I'm sure each of you have seen at some point somebody shaming somebody for not doing, quote unquote, enough when it comes to Black Lives Matter. And so I've been telling people that you can't shame people for not being on the front lines, because being on the front lines isn't everybody's job, you know? So for me, the way that I've been showing up is twofold. I've been showing up with my podcasts. And because in war, which is what I consider this to be, in war, you have those who are getting out the news. And it's important for those news people, you know, podcasts, radio, all that kind of stuff, your CNNs, your MSNBCs, all of those things, to get the news out to other people in the world and other places in the country, because you may not be aware of what happened to Rayshard Brooks. You don't live in Atlanta, you know? Yeah. So that's what I do. I focus on the news, getting things out to other people who may not know, listening to the Healing Space right now, you know? Another way is healing. I am a healer. So I continue my work as a life coach on my campus, helping out these Black, trans, and queer kids who need to be able to see somebody who's actually showing up for them and not leaving them out there in the cold, you know? who's coming there with a loving heart, who wants to be able to listen to them and learn along with them, because I'm learning on this journey too, you know?
Yeah.
So that's how I show up. And that's what I've said, you know, I'm like, I've been marching since I was 15 years old. I don't feel bad at all for not being out there marching this time around, you know?
Yeah.
I've done the work. I've been out there. So, you know, there's a whole nother generation. This 40-year-old can find other ways to be able to give back that are just as impactful, you know? So that's me. What about you, Chavez?
Yeah, so I haven't felt comfortable doing the marches because obviously because of the pandemic.
Yeah.
But I have donated money.
Mm-hmm.
I have signed petitions. I have shared petitions. I continuously post all day.
Yeah.
With about the movement and what's going on today.
Yeah.
And I've also sent emails to attorney generals and state officials as well.
Absolutely. And thank you for saying all of that, because those are the things that I tell people. I'm like, you try to shame people for not being out doing things, but there's a whole lot that you can do inside, and stop acting like COVID doesn't exist.
Yes.
Please.
I see people out here marching without masks on. I don't feel comfortable with that. I'm sorry.
They're talking about it spiking. Duh. Like, the hell? Like, did you not see that sea of people in LA? Yes, it's going to spike. Like, what? No. So thank you for that. And thank you for saying that, because someone who's listening to this podcast right now feels seen because of what you just said. Somebody who's listening to this podcast right now felt shamed because they were like, you know, I'm signing petitions. I'm making sure that I'm speaking out. I'm sharing things online that my friends and family may not know about, but I'm still being told that's not enough. Hell yes, it's enough.
Yes, it is.
Yes. Thank you. Marc?
So I've been out there protesting.
Mm-hmm.
That's some of the scariest shit in my life.
That's real.
Listen, being in Lexington and Louisville, it is scary.
Woo.
But yeah, just doing that, and then it got a little bit overwhelming in Louisville. Yeah. Just with the tear gas and everything. So like a couple friends and I, we just made like little like safe houses. Yeah. And where the protesters can come in, they can get water, they can get food, like the little things like milk in case they've been tear gassed, and just relax. So just being like the kind of like safe house, resource house for them. But that's been my thing. Yeah, I've done a little bit of the writing letters, but I felt really compelled to be out there on the front lines. Yeah, and kind of just witness what, my grandparents witnessed, my great uncles and then witnessed when they were protesting during their time. So yeah, that's been me. Absolutely.
And what about you, Thomas?
Be careful in Louisville. I know they just had that shooting down there.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely be careful.
Be careful.
When this all started, I took it really. It was tough because, and for any of the listeners who are mixed like myself, growing up, people will always assume like, oh, well, you're black and white, which is not true. I'm black and Asian. Right. So growing up was always tough because I was never white enough for the white kids or Asian enough for the Asian kids and never black enough for the black kids. But seeing someone like George Floyd, especially in our stature, being 6'4", 250 pounds, the cops are going to try to bring you down any way possible, whether you're resisting or not. Yeah. So I'm seen as a threat automatically. But as far as, I think Vez had said this earlier, just seeing the entire country come around this has been very, it makes you very proud. And it pushes me and almost energizes me. So what we've been doing out here in Nevada, I have some hookups with some councilmen and state senators that I will be meeting probably later in July. We're starting a group out here called Envy United, which is going to tackle all type of racial issues out here in Nevada. Believe it or not, Nevada only has about 13,000 black people in Las Vegas. People think there's a lot of us out here. There's really not. While it might be a very progressive state, it's a whole bunch of white people. Right. There's a lot of tourists, but they're only here for a couple of days and then leave.
Then they're gone. Right.
Yeah. The black population is not out here much. So, but That's one of the things. I've been in talks with a friend in LA. We are trying to build up a Black Wall Street again, a black block, just to start anywhere that we can start to put the money back into our own community. Switching over from my Wells Fargo bank account, which I still have, I just keep a little bit of money in there,
right,
to One United. Just the little things that we can do. And like Vez says, you don't have to be on the front lines. I went out there at the very beginning, but Nevada is an open carry state. I'm not trying to be out there. Anyone can carry a gun. I don't care if you're black, if you're white. When the gun starts shooting, and I don't have one, I'm not here for it. So, but yeah, just trying to get like you said, get the news out there. It's very difficult because, the first couple of weeks you want to educate, but now we are very tired to this point and exhausted of educating. And I'll be specific to white people that I'm done. You have to Google yourself. You have to do the education yourself. Because we've been doing it for so many years. And when people say that there is so honestly speaking, I didn't know what an HBCU was until I was at least 30.
Wow.
30. The reason I went to Maryland was because I wanted to play football.
Yeah.
I wasn't given any, it's not that I wasn't given any of their choice. I could have went to Dartmouth. I could have went to Western Maryland, but I heard nothing of a Morgan State or of a Hampton or anything like that, where I could have played football and could have learned more about my culture, but that's just not how I grew up. So it's those little things. Luckily, I've been unemployed. I stepped away from my job in December, which was bad on my part. But getting back into education myself out here. So I will be working at a high school in the fall.
Nice.
The little things that we can do to help our young kids, because like I've told a lot of people, being 36 and getting older, we might not be able to see all the fruits of this labor right now.
Mm-hmm.
The kids who are younger now, who are being born right now, are the ones who are going to be able to hopefully see this peace, hopefully see this equality. And that's really what we're fighting for at the end of the day, because
absolutely.
I might be 80 years old, but I can honestly look back and say, man, we fought that good fight so you could be here and actually be equal, to other people.
Yeah.
And that's it. It's just sad that we have to wake up and we're seeing it, yes, between social media and all this stuff. Just every day we're seeing something every single day, between a Karen, a killing, a beating, or some nonsensical person calling 911 just because someone was black and you felt threat.
Yeah.
I'm so sick of these Karens.
Listen.
I'm so sick of these Karens.
But when you look back on it, I think about my entire youth, and nothing, against my mother being Asian and being an immigrant moving over here. She knew no better. She knew no better, just to do what was right for her son. We lived in the affluent white neighborhoods. Mm-hmm. When I moved to Maryland, we lived in Randallstown, an affluent black neighborhood in Randallstown.
Yeah. I
still knew no better. So when people told me, "Oh my gosh, you speak white," or "Wow, you have really nice hair," it never dawned on me, because that's what I was taught. And we're consistently taught that, no, we need to find a space, we need to find a seat at this table. I did that. I tried to sit at the table. They let me sit down at the table, and then what happens? They get you off of the table, and then they make you out to be the villain.
Mm-hmm.
It happened to me. Everyone, I'm sure, on this panel has been stopped by the cops at one point or another.
Mm-hmm.
It happens. So anytime that someone says, "Oh, well, there's no systemic racism in this country," or "No, it doesn't happen," or "You're too good to be put in that situation," it's all bullshit.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah.
And I'm tired of hearing it. I'm tired of people just want to be like, "Well, tell me, what can I," you know what? No. You do the research and get on it.
Yeah. So next question. Thank you all for that. Next question. First, cishet. To be cis heterosexual, you are assigned as male, and you agree with that assignment. I was born male. I agree with this genitalia. You call me male. Him, he, all of those are my proper pronouns. I wanted to make sure I got that out there first because I didn't want to say cis hat, and you're like, what the hell is cis hat?
Right. Thank you for the explanation.
Oh, you didn't know, Tom.
As I was listening to Thomas preparing for my next question, I was like, I feel like if I say this to one of the three of them, the look on their face will be like, and I'm like, oh no, my bad. Let me explain.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad that you did explain.
Yeah.
But yeah, so why do you think in 2020, queer Black men, cis homosexual Black men, and cis het Black men still struggle? And if we can be completely honest, cis het Black women as well. Why do you believe that they still struggle when it comes to the trans experience? Why do you think that it's still so difficult for them to understand? I feel like I saw your hand already go up, Marc. So, so how do you feel about it, Marc?
Granted, number one, thank you for the explanation as well.
Absolutely.
I was going to be like, oh, let me check on my phone.
Right. You're real slow on the look down.
Yeah. But I just, part of me wants to say ignorance. And I want to say that in two different ways. A rude way, like some of these motherfuckers are just ignorant, but also some just don't know.
Yeah.
And for me personally, I don't know much about the trans experience. It wasn't until I came to Kentucky that I learned about the trans experience.
Which is interesting.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh. You know, but it just wasn't something previously I had ever interacted with. You know, coming to Kentucky and working at the institution in the mountains of Kentucky, that was the first time I interacted with a trans student, and not just one, multiple. And just learning about just them and their journey, it really opened my eyes, and it opened my eyes to some of the biases and the ignorant shit that I would say.
Yeah.
You know, but I feel like, okay, correct me if I say this wrong, cis het.
Cis het, yeah.
Okay.
Cisgendered heterosexual, yeah.
Okay, we got to work on that. But I feel like with queer men, especially, you know, queer Black men, we often feel, and this is just me speaking from my experience, I have often felt at the bottom of the totem pole when it comes to being a Black man in general.
Right.
You know, growing up, I felt like I was perceived as weaker or not as masculine as the straight Black men I was around.
Yeah.
Whether it's in my family or in my school, and in terms of that. But then in the queer community, like, I feel like so many people hold, there's a totem pole in a sense with that too. You know, and I feel like they see people who are of the trans experience as lesser than they are.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think that's when it comes to the ignorant motherfuckers type of statement.
Yeah.
Just because it's just like we're all trying to fight to be who we are. So why can't you accept this one demographic who are just trying to be themselves when we have been fighting for the same way? And when I say that, with me just being a black queer man. Yeah. You know, so I think it's ignorance in a couple of different aspects. Some people will grow out of that. Some people will experience more and are open to learn more. Some aren't. Some will hold those ideologies and those mentalities for the rest of their life. Yeah. So I think it's a number of different reasons, but I do think it's a bit of ignorance.
To that statement that you made as far as the totem pole, that's real. And with the totem, the reason why trans people are at the bottom, one, ignorance plays a huge part in it, but so does patriarchy, you know? And it's on both sides for trans women and trans men. So with trans men, you're already looking at it, because for someone who is unwilling to accept a person as a trans man, you're a woman. So already you're weaker than me. Already you should be beneath me. So that's one. So now you're a trans man, that of which I don't understand to begin with. And more than likely, I think you're gay, you know? So now you're underneath me because you're a trans man, but also you're a woman as far as I'm concerned, and you're trying to be a gay man. So now I really don't like you. Now I have two reasons to be against you, you know? So it's like, that's why I'm putting trans men underneath me. It's even worse if you're a trans woman. Because if you're a trans woman, now you are a man and you're disrespecting everything we stand for as men because you're trying to be a woman. So now we're going to get into the history of the femininity we believe you try to push onto us as Black men anyway. You know, you're trying to attack us and take away our masculinity. And we already had that problem with queer men. Yeah. But now you're coming in here and you're making it even worse because you're actually trying to be a woman, not understanding that you already were, you know? You were born a woman. You were just assigned something. Somebody told you who you were. They didn't wait for you to be able to say as you grew older, I am a woman. No, they told you, which is the whole reason with, you know, gender reveal parties and everything. That's a whole nother conversation. But yeah, so they're already deciding for you, this is where you are in the totem. How dare you even believe that you get to be anyone of significance because you want to be a woman. So you're already destroying it for us because for whatever reason in their mind, Black men are not going to exist anymore. So with you informing us that you're a woman, you're making our numbers even lower. So you don't get to exist. So what you said about the totem is very important. And I wanted the misfits to be able to, you know, hear that because we, for a long time as queer Black men, believed that we were at the bottom. But that was because, you know, in all of our ignorance at certain points, we weren't acknowledging our trans brothers and sisters. And if we want to really get deep, trans non-binary people, that is once again a whole other conversation. But yeah, so Thomas, how do you feel?
I've always believed if you're uneducated on something, then you shouldn't speak on it.
Listen,
that has been my biggest thing. I agree with Marc. I think it starts off as an education thing, but quickly regresses down to ignorance. I had the privilege of watching, and I tell everyone to watch it, Disclosure on Netflix, and how amazing that was, and how eye-opening was for myself. Yeah, you know, I'm not going to speak out on something because I'm not that well educated on it. So in that sense as well, I'm not going to discriminate against something because I'm not educated on it.
There we go.
It's I hate to say it's that simple, but to a point it is, but in reality, it's people make it so much bigger because we don't understand. If I say I'm afraid of the dark, well, why are you afraid of the dark? Because I'm afraid of the unknown. There you go. That's exactly what it is. Because you don't know what it is, you just don't like it. And that's not fair. Yeah. I totally agree with that totem pole. I'm not saying I'm on the top, but having the masculine look, the muscles are the gym body or whatnot, when people tell you like, oh, wow, you're gay, I would have never guessed. Well, why?
Right.
What does gay exactly? Would you like me to do all this and to go all, you know, because I can, but I don't. So again, it starts off as education, but I don't expect anyone, especially anyone who's trans, to say, here, let me educate you. No. Because then it's ignorant on my part to not say, I want to learn, so let me go do the research myself.
Absolutely.
It's not your job. If that's what you want to do, that's what you want to do.
Right.
Whether I agree with it or not, I mean, I have no say. I don't care. I really don't. But like I said, I watched Disclosure. To know that it goes back as far as the 1900s when everyone was in film is like,
it goes back even further than that.
Right. It does go. Yeah. And you're like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. But no one knows because you don't want to educate yourself.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I love that you said that. And it is very difficult for human beings to understand that if I am not educated on something, I probably should stay silent, either just in general or until I choose to educate myself. but I feel like I need to be in the conversation.
And that's the thing. And that's, unfortunately, that's a sad part of our culture today, is that everyone has an opinion and they feel that their opinion needs a platform, and then they just say whatever they want.
Yes.
Without doing the research.
Yes. And so often to our queer brothers, and once again, you know, our cishet brothers and sisters as well, I'm like, and again, going back to what Thomas said, as far as, you know, we don't want to say it's so simple, but it's so simple. Like, think about who you are as a quote unquote minority. Think about your journey. Think about your journey as a minority and how you are now not holding space for an entire community. Has that not been done to you? Right there. Like, if we could pause right there, we'll go into the rest of everything else afterwards. But take a moment to just think about that. Think about what you've experienced for your whole life, you know, on the margins, and the space that people don't want to create for you. And now look at you doing the exact same thing. And I think the frustrating thing for me is the people who are unwilling to see it. And they completely blow it away. And it's like, but you can't. It's literally right there in front of your face. I understand that you're unwilling to see it, but history shows that you're on the side of the people that you detest. Because in the ignorance that you're pouring into this community, you can't not see that this is what was done to us, because we're still in the fight. So you have to understand and accept your privilege, because it's not like you're free. We would like to believe we are, but we're not. So you're still fighting. So how can't you still be on the battle lines, you know, and not see that there's a whole group of people right next to you fighting for equality as well, you know? My bad. Chavez, how do you feel?
So I want to piggyback on what you just said about us still being a minority and we're still fighting for equality as Black people. You know, as Black people, we're still fighting for equality. So why discriminate against the LGBTQ community when we're all we're all fighting for the same thing? So that just frustrates me, like just to see how like ignorant tweets and Facebook statuses and stuff about saying like one guy was just going on and on about how the gay community and the trans community don't exist. They pretty much don't exist to him. He don't see us as one. Like pretty much just isolated us. Like that was hurtful to read. Like I didn't know this guy. I didn't know this guy, but like people been sharing it, and that like shit like that hurts.
Yeah.
When we already know how it feels for a white person to discriminate against us, and you're doing the same thing.
Yeah.
And regarding trans women, see, I didn't really understand it at first neither. Like when I came up when I was like 18.
Yeah.
So I didn't really understand it neither until a few years ago because I work for IKEA. I work for IKEA, and they are very big on inclusion.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of trans men and trans women who work there. So me working there has exposed me to them, and they're just regular people just trying to live their lives. Just let them be.
Absolutely.
Just let them be. And I want to also commend Pose for showing trans women in a beautiful light.
Yeah.
Showing how human they are. I believe that taught me a lot about what they go through as well.
Yeah.
And also, everyone's murder has affected me, but the one that I cannot get out my head is Dominique Fells.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
I'm not sure if y'all are familiar with her, but
she's a transgender sister who was dismembered, right?
Dismembered in a suitcase.
Yep.
That was the one that I took at least 3 or 4 days off of social media after reading that. Like, I could not get the image out of my mind.
Yeah.
Of them finding her. But yeah, that's what I think about it, and I do agree with Marc regarding the totem pole as well.
Yeah.
But I just don't understand why we view each other as being lower than the other when we're all fighting for the same thing.
I would implore those in the Misfit universe who may have not heard the episode yet, as well as the three of you, to listen to the episode that came right before this episode. It is called Black Trans Lives Matter, and I have 3 Black trans sisters on there. Yeah, I'm not on there at all.
I watched some of it. I shared it on my page.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm like, 'cause I feel like it's a good education for a lot of people.
Yeah.
I removed myself completely from the space, and it's these sisters just telling their stories, you know? And my goal was for a lot of us, because, you know, and this is what I try to tell our cis het brothers and sisters. I'm like, there are people in the queer community who are just as ignorant to it as you are. So stop thinking that just being, you know, because we're gay, that means, just because we're gay. Chavez is hilarious.
No, but what happened to Thomas?
I was saying be quiet and just keep talking.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Now I have to edit this part out.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
As soon as I saw Chavez's face, I was like,
I was like, what is his finger?
I was wondering what the finger was too, because I'm like, did you not see Thomas disappear?
I've known Chavez long enough to know what his faces mean. And when his eyebrows scrunched, I was like, he's about to ask about Thomas.
Raybon has known me since I was a kid.
Listen, we grew up next door to each other. Listen. But yeah, he dropped off, and I was like, okay. I'll just wait for the thing at the bottom to say that he's back in again. I need to take my phone off Do Not Disturb because he could be trying to text me.
Okay.
Chavez's face. He was like, there you go.
Oh, there go Carlos again. Maybe get some water.
Oh, that was the best. Honestly, I think I'm going to keep this on here. I'm not even going to edit this out.
Keep it.
I'm going to edit the audio, of course, but the video, no. I'm keeping it.
Okay.
I'm going to keep it just like this.
What I missed? Sorry about that.
So you went away, and when you went away, Chavez and I were explaining to Marc that we've known each other for so long that I know Chavez's faces. So I was talking, you dropped off, and I was going to keep talking because I knew you'd come back.
Yeah.
But Chavez, you know, his concerned ass.
Of
he
course,
was like,
right.
And I was like, no.
Right.
And he and Marc didn't know I put my finger up, and I was like, because I didn't want Chavez to talk. And Chavez was like, okay, I get it, but where's Thomas?
I did say that.
Sorry about that.
Oh, that was the best. Marc's like, I'm just along for the ride.
I am. I'm just here.
I forgot the last thing I was saying. You remember what I was talking about, Thomas?
I know we were talking about trans.
I only said you specifically because Marc and Chavez was here with me, so we probably talked so much we forgot. But you may.
I know you were talking about the last podcast you had.
Yes. Okay. I'm gonna try to come in. I'm gonna just end it. That's what I'm gonna do.
Okay.
Figure out how I'm gonna edit that. Figure out how I'm gonna edit that. So yeah. So yes, make sure that you are. I can't stand you, Chavez.
I'm trying to be serious.
Whew, okay, listen now. I got sweat coming down my back. Okay, and I'm not even a sweater. Okay. So yeah, you all make sure you check that episode out. Okay, so last question. And for the record, this has been an awesome conversation. Thank you all so much. Seriously. I usually have the same faces and voices on Black, Queer, and Unapologetic. So it felt really good to have nothing but new people. You guys haven't even been on the podcast before in general. So thank you all so much. I really appreciate it.
Of course. Thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely. So for the last question, when it comes to healing, if there's any advice that you could give to those in the misfit universe, and I don't even think this is one of the questions I sent you all, so forgive me, I'm kind of catching y'all off guard. If there's one particular gem, one bit of advice as far as healing that you could give to those in the misfit universe, what would that one thing be? It could be something that you practice yourself or something that you want to get into practicing, you know? What is it that you feel as though the misfit universe could do in regards to healing? Because this is the Black and Queer Mental Health Podcast. So more than likely, whoever is listening is on the same journey as a lot of us, you know? So they're going through a lot as far as either being Black or being queer in a country that right now they may feel as though doesn't care about them at all. So if you could give them a little bit of advice on how you feel as though they could go about healing, what would it be? This time, I won't choose anyone because all of y'all could be like, I'm thinking right now. So, so I'll go first and give you all an opportunity to think of what your answer would be. For me, I'm going to go back to what it is that Thomas had mentioned much earlier, which was about being able to sit with self.
That's
I am, Chavez talking about, that was what I was going to say.
It is.
I'm a huge proponent of it. I really, really am. For both sides, though, because Thomas also made a very good point, and it won't be easy for some people. And that's reality, you know? But I would challenge you, especially in this space of where we are right now with COVID, take this time where you don't have to rush out of the house every single day. And I mean, it can be in small increments. You don't have to, because me, I'm the kind of person, I like to go through a whole day of silence, just sitting with Raybon for a whole 24 hours. I don't want to interact with nobody. Just sit with me, my thoughts, and heal. You could be listening to this right now and be like, fuck that. And that's totally okay. That's totally okay. Give yourself a couple of minutes, you know, a couple of minutes to just be like, I'm going to sit with myself and see what I want to pull. When I do a lot of my meditation classes, like I teach on top of Stone Mountain here in Georgia. And when I'm walking up with my students, I have us stop at different points of the mountain. And we work on meditation. And one of the things that I ask for them to do is to focus on some of the toxic things they want to give, or not give away, get out of themselves for that day. It could be something they've gone through in the last week, the last month. It could be something that they want to unpack that is 10 years ago. And they every now and then they'll go past it in their mind and they'll be like, nope, not dealing with it today. But in this moment, maybe, just maybe you want to begin to do the work of getting rid of it. And so that's a challenge you can give yourself, you know? So that's what I would implore those who are listening to do in the misfit universe, to just take those baby steps. Take those baby steps to being alone. I mean, we alone more often than not when we go in the bathroom. Take that time. If you say to yourself, I don't want to lay in my bed and think, you know, when I'm sitting on the toilet, I'm going to take that moment. I'm going to take that moment to do a little introspection, you know, do a little healing work and see what comes from that. But please, please, please allow yourself to feel all the feelings. Feel all the feelings, because especially as men who identify as men, you know, a lot of us who are cis homo or cis hetero have been raised to believe that we cannot show feelings, you know, that tears are weak. And I would ask that any of you who are listening right now, and there are a lot of our sisters out here, trans women, you know, cis het women, who also have been raised to feel that way, unfortunately. But I implore all of you to get past that BS. Tears are healing as shit. They really are. And they are such a necessary release. So I challenge all of you to allow yourselves to just be alone for a moment and to feel everything, feel all of it, and see what happens on the other side. Okay. I'm looking at y'all like, who do I think would be the most confident to go next? I'm going to give it to Thomas. I feel like Chavez was just shaking his head like, bitch, that better not be me.
You just said every damn thing I was going to say. I don't know what else to say. You said every damn thing I was going to say.
Well, yeah, besides piggybacking off of that, the biggest thing that I learned through healing and through growing and change is definitely finding my purpose. And a lot of people will say, you know, well, if you find your purpose, then I'm going to start a business or I'm going to start a new career, when that in reality is not what it is. It's really finding out about who you are as a person. You know, like Raven, you said you're a healer, and that is your purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Now you can heal in any space possible. And that's what we have to look at, is actually what you're doing, not where you're doing it.
Come on.
So if I say I'm a trainer, it doesn't matter where I train, but I can train wherever I need to be able to train. Same thing goes for me. You know, when I started Focus, it was kind of a dumb idea, but just to say like, oh, we should start focusing on ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
But then when I really broke it down, and what Focus stands for is focusing on creating your solutions. Because at the end of the day, we have to be able to figure out what is making us upset, what is making us happy. Because when I can start to pinpoint those little things, I can go back to those points to say, this is what made me happy. This is what made me upset. So I'm not going to do this again. So really finding that purpose and finding the reason why we are here. Yeah. Like I said before, we have a limited time. 90 years doesn't seem like a limited time, but Marc, you wait. When you hit 32, 33, it starts speeding up real quick. So, but when you get that feeling, you say, I'm going to do as much as I possibly can in this limited time. And that's going to be doing whatever I feel is a passion of mine. And if that's speaking to people, training people, writing amazing books, directing great screenplays, things like that, that is where you find your purpose and you find your true value in yourself.
Listen, it's been several times on this episode. I can almost reach through this screen at him.
I know.
Almost reach through this screen.
but here's the thing, and I love that, and I appreciate that, and Vez will attest to this. This came with a lot of growth and a lot of change in myself. Mm-hmm. Because back in Baltimore, we're 2020, probably back in 2017, I was not here. Yeah, I was not in this space. And it didn't take a new relationship or a address change for me to change. It took a mind shift change. It took a personality change that I really had to change deep down inside myself that no one else could do for me.
Yes.
I wasn't looking for anyone else to do for me, but I had to figure that out. So there were plenty of tears. There were plenty of laughs. There were plenty of drinks. There was a lot. But at the end of the day, this is what comes out of that. And it's a beautiful thing. It's great. It's amazing.
I'm going to tell you the same thing that people have been telling me for years, and for whatever reason, my Black ace hasn't done it. Chavez knows, because Chavez has done several. You need to write a book. Like, you need to get on that, like, ASAP. I would absolutely get it. Speak a word. Mr. Author, Chavez, what about you?
I would just, to piggyback on both of you guys, I would just tell everyone that it's okay to sit with yourself. Mm-hmm. It's okay to sit with your thoughts. It's okay to sit with your ideas. It's okay to acknowledge when you fucked up. It's okay to acknowledge the good things that you have done. It's okay to admit when you did someone wrong. It's okay to sit with yourself, because if you do not face those things, you're going to stay stuck in that same place forever. Forever. So so I would say to sit with yourself and tackle everything that you're going through, everything that you've experienced, and just change your way of thinking. Change the way you perceive yourself. Change the way you perceive others. Yeah, that's what I would say.
Mm-hmm. Change the way you perceive others. That's not a throwaway line at all. Mm-hmm. Like, change the way you perceive others. That's a lot behind that. Because baby, baby. Woo! Marc, what about you?
Oh shit. Honestly, I mean, it's just kind of piggybacking on what y'all said, but remember, you know, whoever is listening, remember to love yourself throughout your journey. And understand what that love looks like. You know, love yourself by taking care of yourself. Love yourself and realize that loving yourself means pulling away from that person. Love yourself sometimes means being vulnerable.
Yeah.
Challenging your way of thinking. It means, you know, reevaluating what you do. So, you know, it's so easy to get down on yourself for decisions you've made or wrongdoings you've done or whatever, or mistakes you've made. It's so easy to do so, but it's harder to love yourself and recognize that that's okay. Yeah. And recognize that next time when you face that similar situation or similar experience, that you're going to do better. So just remember to, just love yourself through that journey of growth.
Yes. Okay, so I know I thanked you all before I got to that last question, but I want to thank you again because I've really enjoyed this.
I really enjoyed this too.
Yeah, this was good.
Yes. Come on now. We feel like I got some new people I need to be inviting on to that. Because these are, this is our 10th Black, Queer, and Unapologetic, and the conversations are always amazing. But, like I said, I've had a lot of the same people over and over again, who of course will be back. But one of the things that I've been thinking of with the pandemic and what's been going on is, especially with Zoom, which they're not paying me, so I ain't gonna say their name but so many times, but starting to use them provided me with a better way of being able to converse with people in different cities and different states. Because what I was using before made it very difficult to hear people. It sounded horrible when I tried to talk to people in other cities. So this works great, and it's opened up the door for how many people I can invite onto the podcast now. Yeah. And I was like, I really want to talk to people who live in other places. And when I was thinking about people, I'm like, but I want it to be people who are on Black, Queer, and Unapologetic, who I know are genuinely doing the work. No matter where they are in the work, they're actually doing the work, Right. So I was very thankful that all of you said yes, because I really feel like the Misfits could learn from all of you. So again, I thank each and every one of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Raybon.
Absolutely. Misfits, we will be back with good news.